change, to unmask the truth, to unmask the rot in our communities. Unmasking the truth will focus on the effects of corruption on women, prefer solution and demand for accountability. Unmasking the truth will be on this radio station every first Monday by 5:30 p.m. And we ask you to join us to condemn corruption, to demand for accountability, and to work together for a better Nigeria. Unmasking the Truth is an initiative of St. Ives Communications in partnership with Voice of Women and supported by the MacArthur Foundation.
66% of funds allocated to education in Nigeria is stolen by corrupt officials, according to Transparency International. This is called corruption, and it is a misuse of public office for private gain. This act of wickedness and fraudulent conduct by lecturers happens frequently in all tertiary institutions, leaving the already struggling students to become more frustrated and miserable in their bid to gain knowledge. Students in tertiary institutions in Nigeria continue to complain bitterly about lecturers forcing and threatening them to buy handouts in exchange for money. Unmasking the Truth today on your radio station will look at the extortion of tertiary students by lecturers through forceful purchase of study materials. From the feminine angle, we would unmask the truth on how students suffer in the hands of lecturers when they are forced to buy study materials illegally, and how this misuse of public office affects women and girls in school. My name is Esther Alaribe. Unmasking the Truth is an initiative of St. Ives Communications in partnership with Voice of Women and supported by the MacArthur Foundation. Nigerian students spoke to us about their experiences at the hands of these lecturers who make life difficult for them. The students are forced to buy study materials they do not necessarily need, and they told us how this has affected their studies in school. Let's hear what the students have to say.
The time we are there year one, you know, say as you enter year one, I be jabito now. Now so the lecturer will give you book, all this small book. They tell you make you buy them. You don't buy them, you go fail exam. Now so they sell one book one time. As they said the book, we don't even get money to chop. Should I me go buy book? We are one read. And they go tell you the examination where they go ask you now from the book. I say now wow, I don't even see book borrow. All the talk of say I go see book buy. Now here I just dey take face say God go help us. How we go take pass the book Genesis 101, what they call am. The child print one literature notes I make you buy am. The day when we go write the exam, now we go all we sit down, say we wan write exam. Before we know am, now we dey hear we no go gree, wetin come happen? We wan write exam, we don prepare for exam. Maybe I dey think say I go copy for exam, I go just use mini memo because na storybook dey sell. I don't even read the storybook at all. Na him I see all these Muslim brothers. They tear am for campus, scatter the whole place. Say nobody go write the exam. Say even the book where they sell, say they don't sell am again. But you know these are lecturer, they get their way. And they don't sell book where get cover, where they print. Now if they go give our class rep, give them photocopy, make they sell am for us, say na tutorial pass question. Now they give us. Now so I see am for now also before also na lab on about that is there na 2001/2002. You don't take. So that so I see am.
Listening to the voices of students and their experiences in tertiary institutions is heartbreaking. How can an institution of learning be turned into a marketplace, into a place of corruption, extortion, abuse of power, where one cannot negotiate how much to pay for goods and services? To make matters worse, students must look for the money, otherwise they will be failed. A lot of Nigerian students know this already. How sad. My guest today is Tammy Edet Kamonke, a gender equality and social inclusion expert. Hello, Tammy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Good morning. God bless you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us, Tammy. All right. Tammy, you just heard how students are being taken advantage of by those ones that we expect to teach and guide them on the way to go. What can the students do about this problem? How do we address this deep-rooted corruption influenced by the greed of the lecturers in tertiary institutions?
Well, I think that the issue is multifaceted.
Okay.
There are aspects of it that has to do with the university system itself, what is allowed to happen, what is obtainable in the university. There's an aspect that has to do with the lecturer's attitude, and then you also have the angle of the students. And unless a holistic approach is taken, there is no way that these issues can be effectively addressed. What do I mean? For example, even if the students constitute themselves into a pressure group as a class and decide that, oh, we are not going to buy these handouts. If the corruption is not endemic, if the wider school system is not part of it, then it's possible that that kind of pressure group can yield the desired result. But in a situation where you find that the head of department is complicit, the VC is complicit, ASU is complicit, and the students decide to put up a fight, there will be no enabling environment for them to fight through. So that is why it's important, because of course you and I know what is happening in the wider Nigerian society today. The level of corruption is so deep-seated, it's so systemic, and it cuts across all sectors. We hear of sorting these days, even right from primary schools, nursery schools, where you even hear of parents being the ones to sort for their children. They try to give gifts to their children's teachers. They try to induce goodwill of their their children's teachers in order for them to please them well, to give them good grades. So children who are coming up, who are being brought up through such a system, by the time they get to the universities, what do you expect them to do? So my response would be this: there are students in the university from time. There has always been corrupt practices, but not to the extent that we are seeing it today. Students who are studious, who work hard, who focus on their studies, and try to ensure that they stay above board. When lecturers come up with these different practices, and these kinds of students will not comply, they are normally the minority anyway, but they will be in a position to say, look, I know that even without yielding to the lecturer's intimidation, I can read and pass.
Okay.
Such students can assert themselves. But otherwise, if the students, because there are even lecturers who do not teach. I have been through the university system in Nigeria, and I know that there are some lecturers who don't come during their period.
They don't even
come to teach. And those are the ones that will tell you, oh, buy this handout, buy that. So even those lecturers themselves, they also have, issues. They do not have what it takes to be lecturers. But the system, how permissive is the system? Because in such situations, the students can also consider themselves into a group and take it up with the head of department, with the faculty, with the school. And the school can do something about it. Because such lecturers know that they do not earn their role as lecturers. They do not even earn their salary, because you won't see them during lectures. They only come during exams. And so when such lecturers come, they will tell you, do this, do that. And often such lecturers, they give very low marks. They don't give very high marks. They give very low marks because they know they didn't teach you anything. Anyway. So that's why I'm saying that the issues are multifaceted.
All right.
But even this issue of the lecturers selling handouts, you will know that it is the students themselves that they normally walk through. You hear of class rep. It is a class rep, just like this person that you just interviewed.
Yes.
You hear that it is a class rep that will go around collecting the money. It is a class rep that will present the money to the lecturers. So you might find that even among the students themselves, having that unity of purpose for them to say, no, we will not do this. It's a starting point.
But these students don't want to fail, Tammy.
Yes.
They don't want to fail.
Exactly. So that is why I think that a holistic approach will best address the issue.
Right.
First, the university system itself needs to take a stance against these corrupt practices. There is need for code of conduct among lecturers.
Okay.
What lecturers cannot do. And this is information that should be made open to both lecturers and students.
All right.
So that there is accountability on both sides. The students know that this is what a lecturer is expected to do and not to do. And the lecturers, the students themselves know that this is what they are expected to do and not do.
All right,
and
thank you so much.
The lecturers themselves know that, the students know that this is what they are not supposed to do. They know that by the time they do it, the students can now report, because there are channels also of adjudication within the university system. They will have to start with their head of department. In some cases, like Unica, following the sex for grades, saga of BBC.
Yes.
They told us that they set up a committee, an ASU student relations committee, where these kinds of complaints about sex for grades can be channeled through. So I'm sure that different universities will have different systems that they put in place, mechanisms
to curb this,
addressing these kinds of issues.
All right.
So I must confess to you, my sister, we are both Nigerians, and we are both experienced system in Nigeria. When I heard this vox pop, the students you interviewed,
yes,
and I heard her speaking in pidgin, I began to wonder, because these days you find that somebody will graduate from a university and the person cannot even write simple English. I was surprised that the university and undergraduate will be interviewed and he or she will be responding in pidgin, or the communication will be, it raises many questions even in my own mind.
All right, take your time.
So the kind
come back
the
to
quality
that.
of students that cannot communicate in simple, correct English.
All right, thank you, Tammy. Unmasking the Truth from the Feminine Angle today is looking at the effects of fraud committed by some selfish lecturers who take advantage of students. I want to take us back to the streets where we spoke to Nigerian mothers who toil endlessly. We know how it is right now. We know how the economy is. And these mothers do so much to ensure their children have good education, and how this extortion by lecturers also affects the mothers.
ó máa ń jẹ́ ọ̀tọ̀ pé ó máa ń kọ́ mi lóminú nígbà tó bá ní ọ̀wẹ̀ tó ní pé ọmọ dídọ̀dídọ̀ gbọ́dọ̀ ra ìwé yìí wọ́n dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé ìkáwọ́ ọ̀dọ́gba bóníkálukú ṣe ń rí owó ọ̀sọ̀ọ̀sọ̀ ni ẹni tó ń kawó robo ń sìn yín tọ́dẹ̀ ní dídọ̀dídọ̀ pé kọ́mọ yìí kó ra kíní kó ra handout kọ́ máa bá wa wò ṣe láwọn lẹ́ṣọ́rọ̀ yẹn because gbogbo akọ́la ní owó yìí gbogbo owó tí bóníkálukú ṣe ń rí owó títí ẹ̀ ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ni ẹni tó ń gbowó oṣù tó yẹ pé ìparí oṣù lápẹ́ rí owó gbà bóló ti fẹ́ rówó aṣọ máa sá káàkiri pé ojú náà gbọ́dọ̀ ti ọmọ mi ní skul tó dẹ̀ pé ó máa jẹ́ ohun tó yẹ pé ó máa ń bà mí nínú jẹ́ tó yẹ pé ìgbà tó bá ní kọ̀ǹpọ́sọ̀ tọmọ náà máa pè pé yáyáyá mọ́mí o ẹ tètè sẹ́ndì owó handout yìí mo gbọ́dọ̀ rà tó jẹ́ dídán èèyàn ṣì máa lọ máa wówó yá káàkiri ilẹ̀ pé òun fẹ́ fi ra handout fún ọmọ ó máa ń dùn mí gan ni ó máa ń ká mi lára pé ìwé yìí gẹ́gẹ́ bí abiyamọ gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìyá àwọn èròǹgbà tèmi lórí pé bí àwọn lecturer ṣe export kò dáa nígbà tó ọmọ mi máa wá ń complain á sọ pé òun kàwé òun ò kàwé òun ò ní pàṣẹ ṣe bàbá yẹn tóun bá ra textbook yẹn pé bàbá yẹn ṣe báyìí bàbá yẹn ṣàwò wọ́n máa segregate àwọn máa discriminate àwọn nínú class so mi mọ̀ kí bóyá bíi díìnì wọn wọ́n jẹ́ pé wọ́n ní nǹkan tó máa rìpọ́ọ̀tì fún but even at that ó máa ń jẹ bá àwọn senior lecturers náà ló máa ń ṣàwọn kan bẹ̀rẹ̀ so tí o bá ti report ta ló fẹ́ pe senior lecturer in order kò sẹ́yìn gbèrú tó máa pe senior lecturer in order so kò really sí point lórí kíní yẹn but mo rò pé Nigeria máa get better to the extent pé lecturer kan ló máa pé for the 2 students nǹkan tó ń sọ fojú calculate pé mo níbi 3,000 students tí 3,000 students bá ra textbook mi 3,000 ìwé kan bí 5,000 ìwé kan wọ́ máa ti lówó nítorí pé sálárì wọn náà ń pè but aside from the fact pé sálárì ọ̀rọ̀ sálárì ojú kòkò lecturer àti pé ọkọ̀ fẹ́ mọ̀ láti máa frustrate àwọn ọmọ
It is really, really sad. It is sad that mothers have to go through all of this. Imagine the pain, the frustration of these mothers, of what their children have to go through at the mercies of these greedy lecturers. Especially women at the grassroots level who really do not have a lot going for them financially. Some of them end up selling their wrappers. They borrow money to give to their daughters to pay for study materials. And at the end of the day, these same heartless lecturers will still go ahead to request for sets for grades from the female students. It has become extremely difficult for parents to comfortably send their children to tertiary institutions in Nigeria. And as a result of all of this, clearly we have seen what these lecturers have been up to in tertiary institutions. Tell me, how do we get to address it? Because our students are not safe in school. When it comes to financial aspects, yes, they get extorted. And for the female students, you hear things like, you have to scratch my back, I scratch yours. And I'm just wondering why.
Like I said, there are different mechanisms in school that can be explored to address these issues. But the first thing that needs to happen is for the students themselves, perhaps the female students, because I think from all that we are hearing, they face double exploitation, sextortion and extortion.
Yes.
So those of them, there are some of them who both pay the money by buying the materials that they are compelled to buy, in addition to being harassed sexually. So perhaps they can constitute themselves into pressure groups. There are organizations that I know, human rights organizations, women's organizations, that are usually interested in providing support to these kinds of students.
Okay.
But it's also important for them to first of all find out within the university system, there are female lecturers who are objective, who are not involved in these kinds of practices, and who try to provide support, especially to female students, to make sure that these kinds of issues are escalated to the right authorities to ensure they get, fair judgment, they get justice at the end of the day. So that is one thing that they can explore, to put themselves into a group and talk with female lecturers, especially the ones that they know have the influence within the university community that can take up their matter. Sometimes you find that there are DVs that are male and female in a particular university, where they have two DVCs, one for academics, one for admin. You will find that one of them is bound to be a female. You also have lecturers on campus, often who are Christians, female lecturers, that you can take up these kinds of matters with. So those are some options that they can explore. They could also explore the committees that have been set up by ASU, the ASU Student Relations Committees, because it's there to address issues with misconduct on the part of the lecturers.
Okay. So
I'm sure that by the time they speak up, so the key thing is actually speaking up. Because often you find that when these things happen, nobody wants to bail the cat. People are... And that is why it's important for them to identify someone within the school, community. There will always be a female lecturer that they can talk to, who can take up their matter. So that way, it is not they as individual students. And when they come together as a group, it's easier for them to take up the matter without any one person being,
the face of the group.
Facing victimization as a result of speaking up. Because by the time it is a group, then the matter also is given weight. And it can be taken off first from the department, and then it can be escalated to Senate, and so on. Usually, once these issues are brought out, the university system tries to distance itself from such malpractices. So they try to ensure that they take action to show that the system is not condoning it. So the first thing...
Hello, Tammy. All right, we'll try to reconnect with
that they on their own are doing what it will not put them in a difficult position. For instance, if there are students that are studious, that take their studies seriously. There's also something called recall. Your paper can be remarked where a lecturer fails you.
Yes,
and lecturers know that there are very few instances where students have the boldness to come out and say, let my paper be remarked. True. That's why they get away with all these things. So that is also another option that can be explored. If
Thank you so much.
You refuse to buy these handouts, for instance, and you know that you have studied, you have assessed materials, because in some cases those lectures those particular classes, there are textbooks that are available in the library that you can read without even having to buy them. So by the time you know you have studied this course and you can pass the test or the exam, and the lecturer insists on you buying the handout, you can decide not to buy the handout and do the test or do the exam. And if you're confident that you have done well and the lecturer decides to fail you, you can ask for your papers to be remarked or recalled.
All right,
Normally,
thank you so much,
be
Tammy.
taken to some other lecturers to remark them. So those are some of the options that are available that can be explored. These options have always been there, but people have, seldom taken advantage of them. So these are some available options that they can explore.
All right, thank you so much, Tammy. Yes, just like Tammy said, all of these options to explore, but who will bail the cat? Nigerian lecturers really need to do better. Unmasking the Truth on your radio station is an initiative of St. Ives Communication in partnership with Voice of Women and supported by MacArthur Foundation. We want to hear more from the students of tertiary institutions on their experiences in the hands of these greedy lecturers.
Of blessed memory ní Etiku, a máa ń pè wọ́n ní Mr. Okafor, Provost wa ni. So bàbá yẹn máa ń gbowó lọ́wọ́ àwọn èèyàn. Ó máa gbowó tó bá fẹ́ ṣe test, ó máa gbowó káwọn fẹ́ print, tó bá fẹ́ rán pé ẹ fẹ́ pass iṣẹ́ yín, àwọn èèyàn máa ń fún un lówó. Àwọn tó bá ń ṣe project tó bá ń supervise lọ́dọ̀ wọn, ó máa béèrè lọ́wọ́ ìgbà tó bá gbowó wá. Go through project one chapter by chapter when you manage láti bribe láti jẹ́ kó go through project one provided to go through it in every chapter of your project ẹni yẹn bá ń kọ Mr. Okafor máa ń béèrè lọ́wọ́ àwọn students. So many people wọ́n máa ń sọ story wọn fún mi bí lecturer gan ṣe sọ pé tó mọ̀ bá lówó kó fara ṣe. Do you get? Kò tí ṣọ̀rọ̀ sí mi rí but I don't know if my explanation is better like that. Abi you want me to do it in a professional way?
Yes, so this lady just highlighted the case of a lecturer who was known to carry out all of this kind of atrocities in schools. We have heard the strong voices of the young, of the old, and it is evident that corruption is a big factor affecting the educational system in Nigeria. It is obvious that the lecturers are the number one culprits who make life hard for students, especially the female students, to study. One can only imagine what the students will face when ASU strike is called off. One can actually only imagine. All right, Tammy, finally, what are your thoughts on what we need to do to stop the extortion by lecturers in our institutions of learning? Now focusing on the lecturers, Tammy.
Okay. For instance, I know that following the Text for Grade scandal, a number of Nigerian universities decided to strengthen their internal mechanisms for addressing sexual harassment, in particular within the university. So I know that the universities came up, with the information that there are existing policies on campus in schools, to guard against sexual harassment, and that those policies can be, strengthened, reviewed, and strengthened, because the fact that these things are still happening, despite having those policies in place, means that the policies are not being enforced, they are not being implemented. So it's important for information about those policies, the availability of those policies in the university, to be shared, and for public discussions on campuses, including both the students and the lecturers, to be held, as to what can make those policies to become effective. And then also, like, universities that already have existing mechanisms for fair hearing, for addressing these kinds of issues.
Okay.
It's important that the information about those mechanisms is made public in those different schools to ensure that students are aware that these are the people that they need to talk with, the people they need to report to whenever they encounter these kinds of incidents, especially that of sexual harassment on the part of the female students. So that once they encounter those kinds of experiences, they know that, okay, these are the people that represent the school authority that they can talk with. So since those mechanisms are already there, it's important to explore, utilizing them first.
All right, thank you so much, Tammy.
We can now think of, external interventions such as litigation Because
right.
there have been
Thank you,
cases
Tammy.
where organizations have actually taken up cases affecting female students.
All right. Thank you so much, Tammy, for unmasking the truth of corruption with me today.
To explore using the internal mechanisms that we put in place, because the university system will also want to ensure that accountability
on their part.
Yes, is first, addressed internally. It is only when that fails that you can now explore external.
All right, thank you so much, Tammy.
So that the university system will not be given an excuse to say, "Oh, you took the matter, into your hands by not first reporting it within the school or exploring the school mechanisms that have been put in place."
All right,
so
thank you, Tammy. Do have a great day. All right.
So find out about these existing mechanisms and try to understand how they can take advantage of this existing platform to address their issues, to seek redress.
Thank you so much,
whenever
Tammy.
they have this kind of experience.
Yes, thank you, Tammy. All right, and that was Tammy Edet Kamonke, a gender equality and social inclusion expert. To end the harm, the atrocities being carried out by lecturers who extort money through the forceful and illegitimate purchase of study materials in our tertiary institutions, school authorities need to introduce a whistleblowing anonymous system for students, as well as the sound unit that gets to address all of these issues with lecturers involved in this kind of misconduct. This will go a long way in reducing the rates of corruption amongst students, amongst lecturers, and also protect the students. And this will also allow for us to celebrate lecturers who have been found worthy in discharging their duties as lecturers. Lecturers who have been found to be incorruptible and accountable. This will allow for us to celebrate them properly. If you have a story on corruption in your community and you would like us to talk about it, you can share your comments by sending us a text or WhatsApp message on 070-317-56537. Unmasking the Truth on the Effects of Corruption on Women from the Feminine Angle is an initiative of St. Ives Communications in partnership with Voice of Women and supported by the MacArthur Foundation. Thank you to the production team, the producer Taiwo Adelaya, production assistants Omozele Umoren, and the executive producer Tom Ukewali Shonaya. My name is Esther Alarabi.
A time for change, to unmask the truth, to unmask the rot in our communities. Unmasking the Truth will focus on the effects of corruption on women, prefer solution and demand for accountability. Unmasking the Truth will be on this radio station
every first Monday by 5:30 p.m.
And we ask you to join us to condemn corruption, to demand for accountability, and to work together for a better Nigeria. Unmasking the Truth is an initiative of St. Ives Communications in partnership with Voice of Women and supported by the MacArthur Foundation.
WFM 91.7